Open our third year, chapter 15, day in court. You stand at the bar still, thunderstruck by what you overheard the other doctors say. They think it was Naveen who deserves to be brought up for malpractice. What actually happened that day? A plan starts formulating in your mind, but you'll need to back up. I'll ask for help from... I won't lie, Jackie. Jackie, I know this is sudden, but can you come back to the hospital with me? It's about Ethan's malpractice suit. I need someone to come to the records room and help me find a specific file. Lead the way. You know I'm always willing to help you out, Casey. Just know that you are now deeply in my debt. Thanks, Jackie. You're the best. You arrive at the deserted records room in Edenbrook's basement. This late at night, there's no one on duty, so the two of you are the only ones there. Oh boy, there's a lot of charts to go through. Thanks for your help. I'd never be able to go through all this by myself. Hey, what are you friends for? Besides, this isn't our first time wrangling these archives. Now, what do you want me to look for? I'm looking for the charts for Annika Grover, a patient from about 10 years ago. It's a case that Ethan's being sued over. That narrows it down a bit. What exactly are you expecting to find on the chart? I'm not entirely sure, but I know it won't be what I expect. The two of you take different aisles, start searching for the file in question. There are thousands of files organized by year, department, some alphabetical, some all mixed up, but suddenly... boom! Annika Grover. Knew I could find it. You take the patient record and start flipping through it. This matches what Ethan told me. The, voriconazole in antifungal treatment interacted with her earlier ibuprofen treatment. She coded. What? But there's a known contradiction there. Every internist knows that. No wonder they had to trach. Whoever signed off on starting the voriconazole would be at fault then. As you check the signatures for the various treatments, however, you stare at a page in confusion. Wait, Ethan didn't sign for the trach like he said. He signed off on the voriconazole, but he was clear Naveen ordered that. You look through the rest of the chart. Sure enough, Ethan only signed for the final treatments. Everything else is signed for by a very scribbly, very familiar signature, and your heart sinks. I need to talk to Ethan now. The two of you head to the diagnostics office in silence. You sigh heavily, dropping the chart on the table. Thank you. I mean it. I don't know how I would have managed without you along. Anytime, Casey. Do you want me to stay with you until Ethan gets here? No. I already paged him, so he should only be a few minutes. But I feel like I need some time to clear my head before I talk to him. In that case, I'm gonna head back to the party. Best of luck, alright? It's not long before Ethan shows up in the office. If you wanted to get me alone, I assume we find a private corner of the balcony, or, I don't know, my apartment? I did want you alone, but not for that reason. Wordlessly, you put the file on the desk between you and push it towards him. He immediately pales, recognizes it, and you both know the story it tells. Ethan, I need you to trust me. I do trust you. Then why didn't you tell me the truth about this? I didn't feel like I could tell anyone. I was so close to telling you, but this isn't just about me. He looks at you with a mixture of apology and pain in his eyes. What precisely would you like me to clarify? Naveen is the one who signed off on the NSAIDs. He had to know she'd code if he put her on the voriconazole. And you told me he's the one who ordered the treatment, but you signed off on it as well as the trach. Why wouldn't you tell me the whole situation arose from Naveen's mistakes, not yours? I honestly, I wanted to protect him, even from you. I know you admire Naveen a great deal, and I didn't want to do anything that damaged your respect for him. I get that, but what about you? Why wasn't your respect for him damaged? It's difficult to explain. This case was complicated in every sense of the word. Then make it clear to me, Ethan. Help me understand what happened that day. Near the start of my residency, Naveen's sister passed away. It was very sudden, very painful mesothelioma caused by asbestos in her workplace. You know how fast mesothelioma can progress and how agonizing it is. They were very close best friends, really. Her death was extremely painful. So because his judgment, especially medically, was clouded, I could see where this could cause issues. Poor Naveen. Indeed. He tried to bury himself in the work to deal with the grief, but he was distracted. Made mistakes he never would have otherwise. I'm guessing one of those mistakes was ordering the contradictory treatment. Yes. The entire team agreed on high doses of ibuprofen shortly after her arrival to help with her pain. Naveen must have simply forgotten the discussion. After all, it's all over-the-counter drug, and reactions like hers are rare. Ethan shakes his head, clearly troubled by the memory. In Nika's case, it was a wake-up call for Naveen. He realized if he kept going like he had been, someone might be hurt. Really hurt. I'll never forget how he looked that night. He was so shaken. It was the first time I'd really seen him scared. So you signed your name to the chart to protect your mentor, even though Naveen was the one responsible for all of it. I did. And I've never regretted it. After that, he took time away to clear his head. When he came back, he was his old self. It was, if anything, more careful. Sounds to me like... he didn't falsify the chart. He signed certain things and didn't sign other things. That's the only thing it was. I want to say Naveen never suffered any consequences. Ethan tenses and frowning at you. That's unfair. Naveen is one of the most ethical men I've ever met. Trust me, he punished himself more than enough for his error. Self-recrimination isn't the same as being held accountable. He made a major mistake. He should face real consequences. Well, it was my choice, not his, and the consequences are there to ensure you don't make the same mistake again. And Naveen never did. But how could Naveen let you take such a massive risk for him? It doesn't seem at all like the man I know. Naveen didn't let me take the fall for him. The fact is, he never knew what I did. Wait, what? But how is that? Casey, you know from experience by now, sometimes you get behind on your charts. Sometimes you mix them up. No one remembers whether they signed off on every single IV antibiotic, not even Naveen. So he never realized what you'd done, and you never told him, and now it's all caught up to you. I knew the possible consequences of my decision, and I stand by it. If it means there's a price to pay, then I accept that. But you're being sued for something that isn't your fault. In a way, it is my fault. Mine and the team's. We all should have seen that Naveen wasn't himself, and that something would slip eventually. Staying silent was just as much an unforeseen error, or unforced error, as the medical mix-up he made. It's only right that I take responsibility for it. But Ethan, that's not fair to the team, Naveen, or you... My mind is made up. I'm prepared to deal with whatever's coming from this. I suggest you try to do the same. With that, he turns to go, cutting a stark, solitary, lonely figure in the doorway. Ethan. The sharp ache in your chest spurs you forward, and you clasp your hands around his wrist to stop him from leaving. He pauses and then looks back at you, brow heavy with melancholy. Please, Ethan, we can get through this together. Don't shut me out. You don't have to do this alone. His eyes fill with a storm of emotions, longing, affection, mixed with grief and pride. He leans forward slowly as if to kiss you, but then backs away. I'm sorry, Casey, but yes, I do have to do this alone. He gently removes your hold from his wrist and heads off, leaving you clutching your hand and the memory of his warmth close to your chest. That night, you toss and turn in your bed, unable to sleep, replaying the events of the day over and over, remembering what Ethan said, and what he didn't say. Ethan's whole career, whole reputation could be in jeopardy, just so Naveen's can remain pristine, and Naveen doesn't even know. There's a sudden loud sound of scratching claws at the foot of your bed, followed by two sudden weights leaping on your feet. Oh, so that's where you've been hiding, in my room, hmm? Come here. Reach down and pick up Locum first, then Cinnamon, gathering them to your chest to snuggle. As you turn your head, you notice the third member of the trio crawling on your bedside table. How the hell did he get up there? Alright, you two. Soon, you're surrounded by your snuggly, furry, and scaly friends. Feeling soothed, you turn your mind back on the problem. Ethan wants to keep this quiet, but surely there's something I can do to help. Yeah, you contact Naveen. Boom, done. As you toss and turn, an idea begins to percolate. Just after dawn, you grab your phone, dialing a familiar number. Hello, Naveen. This is Casey. We need to talk. Hey, look at the simple solutions. When you arrive at Naveen's house, he's already waiting for you on the deck of the lawn, sitting behind a table, groaning with coffee and warm pastries. Oh, God, I love this man. Oh, you didn't have to do all that. I imagine you didn't have much time for breakfast this early, which begs the question, to what do I owe the pleasure? It's about Ethan. And you. You tell Naveen everything Ethan told you, and about Naveen's struggles at work, about his nearly fatal mistake, and how Ethan chose to cover for him secretly. By the time you're finished, Naveen looks ashen. I'm not sure it's totally true, but that's what Ethan told me. He'd probably be furious I even mentioned this to you. I see. Yet you came to me anyway. I had to. I can't let Ethan fall on his sword. I care about Ethan a lot, not just as a mentor or a friend, but as something much more. The idea that Ethan would lose his career over something he didn't even do, it's just not something I can accept. Naveen's eyes go distant for a minute. When he speaks again, his voice is low and shaky. I appreciate your honesty, but the truth is, Ethan didn't tell you the most important part. I wasn't just distracted by my grief. I was relying on some very unhealthy and dangerous coping mechanisms. You mean? I was drinking too much, sometimes far, far too near to the start of a shift. I've no doubt my judgment was clouded. Ethan didn't say anything about that. I'm not surprised. Even now he's trying to protect not just my career, but my dignity, no matter the cost. So what are you gonna do? I'm not sure. So much is at stake for Ethan as much as me. I need time to think. We're out of time. His trial is today. I have to testify this afternoon. Yes, I know. I was planning to attend and to offer my support, but Ethan asked me not to, so I wouldn't get blowback from Bloom. Now I realize he was still hoping to hide this from me. I have to think long and hard on what to do next. Sighing, you leave Naveen alone by the lakeside, musing sadly as he looks out over the water. Back at the apartment, you prepare for Ethan's big day in court, looking over the contents of your wardrobe. So much as at stake for Ethan and the hospital, I need to make sure I'm in the right impression, or making one. Pick out a professional outfit to impress the court and help your case with Ethan. Oh, for the love of... Yes, this just screams professional. Also screams a lot of other things like, where's Waldo? This look will ensure the judge and the attorneys take me seriously. Said no one ever! You arrive at the courtroom to find it packed with doctors, hospital staff, and other onlookers. You make a beeline for Ethan, who's sitting with his attorney. Casey, good, you're here now. This is my attorney, Laura Whitman. His attorney smiles at you warmly and shakes your hand with a firm touch. Thank you for coming today, Dr. Valentine, and thank you for making such an effort to look professional. It might sway the jury. Oh, for the love of shut up! As it happens, Casey is always professional, regardless of what she wears. But his expression softens into a smile as he looks you up and down. But I very much appreciate the effort. I'm sure Laura's right. It can only help my cause. Ethan, can I speak to you privately for a moment? Raising his eyebrows, he glances at his lawyer and nods. She withdraws to a discreet distance, and you turn to him and speak in a low voice. I went and spoke with Naveen this morning. He revealed a certain detail you neglected to mention. I didn't want you to speak to him. I told you I didn't want him involved. He deserves to know, Ethan. He can make his own choices about whether he wants to get involved or not. For what it's worth. At least tell your attorney what happened. No, I'm not telling her, and that's final. But Ethan, it's her job to know about the case. She needs that information so she can help you. Yes, it's her job to help me, which would mean she'd be obligated to expose Naveen if she thought it might achieve the goal. I can't risk it. I'd rather she not know, rather than order her to stay quiet and watch, only for her to save me against my will. I'm not letting what happened with Naveen come any other way near this case. That is final. It's my choice and no one else's. Alright. Just please think about this and think this through, Ethan. And good luck. You leave him to confer with his lawyer and head back into the gallery to find a spot to sit. You soon see Tobias and Harper waving you across the crowd. Hey, look! No one's working today, apparently. All for this court case. We saved a spot for you. We figured the team should stick together. Besides, I imagine it must be nerve-wracking to wait for your time on the stand. You're not wrong. Well, at least you don't look nervous. In that ensemble, you look ready to take on the world. Tobias is right. I've always found I feel more confident when I dress well, and I have to imagine that's true of you right now. I didn't realize you'd be here today. I'm here for moral support. Ethan is a dear friend, and I feel like he could use all the friends he has right now. And, I've been called to testify. Character witness, I believe. Really? Ethan's legal team really chose you as a character witness? Ouch. Ouch. Jesus. Actually, I've been called as a witness for the plaintiff. You're testifying for the plaintiff? But why? What information do they think you can offer? It's not like you were there when it happened. Well, neither were you, to be fair. I imagine we're both being called for the same reason, to give insight in Ethan's ethics and character. But if you're being called by the plaintiff, they must think that you'll only have bad things to say. I'll only have honest things to say. Beyond that, there's no point being stressed about it before the questions get asked. Sighing, you look around the courtroom, and when you see Leland Bloom towards the back conferring with an anxious-looking young woman... I want to punch you so goddamn badly. Watching Ethan suffer must be like a day at the theater for him. If this goes badly, he'll have an excuse to fire Ethan altogether. Moments later, Bloom finishes his conversation, and to your shock, the woman walks to the plaintiff's table at the front of the court, sitting down without hesitation. Wait, is that Annika Grover? Why was Bloom talking with her? 2 + 2 = 4. Connect the goddamn dots or I'll get you a coloring book. Before you can come up with an answer, the bailiff stands at the front and asks for everyone to rise as the judge takes his seat. I swear to God, if it's the same judge we see all the time. Oh, thank God. Be seated. Court is in session. Mr. Ally, you may begin. This case is simple. We can prove Ethan Ramsey was responsible for misdiagnosing the treatments that caused my client to code, and the injuries that she suffered as a result. The most tragic part, this was avoidable. Our experts will show her injuries to be a result of unconscionable negligence. The jury seems like they're buying this. I hope that's not bad news for Ethan. It literally just started and he's making an opening statement, but yeah, they're buying it quickly. In quick succession, the plaintiff's attorney lays out the facts of the case, calling first a pharmacologist expert to explain the medication. It's uncommon, but voriconazole and ibuprofen can cause anaphylaxis. A resident like Dr. Ramsey would absolutely have known that. Then the librarian who filed the original chart in the hospital records. Yes, that's definitely Dr. Ramsey's signature. I've seen it on countless charts. But normally doctors would never sign off on a procedure without checking and double-checking what was prescribed before. And finally, the patient who speaks with a quiet, slightly croaky voice. Dr. Ramsey told me that they, would help me with speech therapy referrals, but that my voice would never quite be the same again. And at the time, you accepted that? I did, and I guess I figured that was a raspy voice was better than dying. But recently I was able to talk things over with some people I trusted. It helped me realize something I hadn't considered before. Even if I'm at peace with this, what about all the other patients? Isn't it my duty to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else? After a brief cross-examination, the patient takes her seat again and her attorney stands. The plaintiff rests, Your Honor. In that case, call your first witness, Miss Whitman. Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to call Dr. Casey Valentine to the stand as a character witness. Tension rippling through you like diarrhea. I had to. Make your way to the stand. Dr. Valentine, you've been working closely with Dr. Ramsey for the past 3 years. How would you describe him as a doctor? I'd say he's more than a little arrogant. He's a piece of shit because he's a dumbass and won't just realize that this is Bloom. Careful and compassionate. I've never met a doctor who cares about his patients more or fights harder for their well-being. Part of that is being methodically to a fault. Dr. Ramsey always double-checks everything. He knows knows a mistake can hurt the patient. That's what makes him such an amazing doctor, one of the best I've ever known. Stop smiling or I'll wipe it off your face. In your time working with Dr. Ramsey, have you ever seen any sign of gross negligence, cutting corners, say, or missing important case elements? Cutting corners? No. That's not how Ethan operates, and he's extremely attentive to details. Lastly, if you had to tell the court one thing about the defendant, one thing to consider in their deliberations, what would it be? That Dr. Ethan Ramsey is not someone who makes mistakes like this. There may be a lot of doctors who make careless errors, but Ethan isn't one of them. He's cautious, careful, almost to a fault. Someone who takes this profession, his profession, this seriously, wouldn't make a mistake this big. That's my personal and professional opinion. Thank you, Dr. Valentine. No further questions. She sits down. The plaintiff's attorney stands up and approaches, buttoning a suit jacket. Dr. Valentine, you're clearly a professional in your field, and by all accounts, you have a bright career ahead of you. I'm sure the whole court can tell just by looking at you that you're a consummate professional. Yes. Yes. Totally. Looks like the outfit is doing the trick. I swear to God, I'm gonna throw something. Steele, I have to ask, do you think you're truly able to be unbiased when discussing your former mentor, Dr. Ramsey? It's true that Ethan played a huge part in helping me become the doctor I am. I'm proud to say that, like him, I put patients first, here in the courtroom as well as in the hospital. As for what you're implying, I certainly wouldn't risk my career to cover for someone else, no matter what our relationship was. In that case, I'm sure you'll answer the next question honestly. To your knowledge, Dr. Valentine, did the defendant actively work to get a patient out of potentially life-saving trial this year? Well, yes, but... And to your knowledge, did he also falsify records and break study protocol in order to get a different patient into the study? Oh, look at this man! He has access to shit that no one else should have access to. Bloom! Okay, we got 2 out of how many now? Well, yes, but that was So you admit, then, that he has a habit of ignoring procedures when it suits him? I wouldn't put it that way. Objection, Your Honor. Badgering the witness.
Overruled, but I'll ask you to come to a point, Mr. Alley.
Of course. Given what you know of Dr. Ramsey, isn't it possible he made this mistake? You look over to Ethan, thinking of all the times you've worked with him, all the things he's done in the past year. I think it wasn't his mistake. Excuse me. I don't think Ethan was any way responsible, and I think it was someone else. Move to classify this witness as hostile. She's trying to impeach sworn evidence with baseless speculation.
Sustained. Jury will disregard the last remark.
You sigh, frustrated with your attempt to thwart it. Ethan, in contrast, slumps in relief. The plaintiff's attorney smirks. I have no further questions for the witness. Gulping, you get up from the stand and move back to your seat. As you pass Ethan, he nods at you, but you can see he's troubled. I'm gonna throw a shoe at him. I'm sorry I couldn't help you more, Ethan, but I told the truth. Ethan's attorney calls a few more witnesses, but soon enough the defense rests its case. As soon as Miss Whitman says this, Mr. Ally springs up. Your Honor, with your permission, we would like to call Dr. Tobias Carrick as a rebuttal witness. The judge nods his approval. Taking a deep breath, Tobias gets to his feet, walks to the front, and takes the stand. As a rebuttal witness, they must think Tobias has some pretty damning things to say. Dr. Carrick, please tell the court how you know the defendant. We were friends and roommates in med school. By our residencies, we have a falling out. Due to Dr. Ramsey's arrogance, yes? I'm sure he'd say I had something to do with it too. If you're asking if Ethan was arrogant, the answer is absolutely, still is. We've heard about rash decisions, interference in studies. Is the man you know capable, even likely, to make a mistake like this? Tobias looks at the attorney blankly, and then to everyone's surprise, he throws his head back and starts laughing long and loud. God, no. Back in med school, he knew every drug contradiction before first term even started. There's no way he'd make such an elementary mistake. If he somehow did, he'd have handed in his resignation before his shift was up. With a brief, stunned silence from both the plaintiff and the defense. So you're saying you don't think Dr. Ramsey is responsible? You can see he signed the chart, can't you? Chart mix-up happen all the time. Even finishing your charts is tough. Whatever happened, the error wasn't Ethan's. But I have no further questions for this witness.
Miss Ally, would you like to cross-examine the witness?
No, I guess not. The defense has no questions.
Then the witness is excused.
Grinning, Tobias gets up from the seat and walks past Ethan, who looks thunderstruck. Tobias winks at him, but before Ethan can say anything, Tobias has swept past him and rejoins you in harbor. Wow, Tobias. I knew that Ethan could count on you. Really? I'd hate to think I could ever be that predictable. Smiling, Tobias takes a seat, and for the first time, you have an inkling of hope. Maybe things aren't quite so dire. Suddenly, the door opens and someone rushes down the aisle and approaches Ethan's lawyer. After a moment, whispering together, the attorney stands up. If it pleases the court, I'd like to request a short recess to consider new evidence.
I'll allow a 30-minute recess.
Laura nods and, touching Ethan's shoulder, gestures for him to follow her. They walk down the aisle, then, to your surprise, stop in front of you. Dr. Valentine, if you wouldn't mind joining us for this meeting? Me? Sure. You, Ethan, and his attorney are ushered into a small side room where you're surprised to see Naveen waiting and smiling pleasantly.
Naveen, what are you doing here?
Oh, come now, Ethan. You really didn't think I'd miss a trial that focused on something that I did.
The blood drains from Ethan's face, and he looks at you, a mixture of worry and accusation in his eyes.
I told you shouldn't have said anything to him.
I may have told him what happened, but I left it up to him to decide what to do. Ethan opens his mouth to answer her, but is interrupted by the door opening and Bloom walking in.
All right, I got your message. What the hell is going on?
I'm gonna throw a shoe definitely at your ass.
Ah, good. You're right on time, Mr. Bloom. Now that we're all here, let me explain myself. Thanks to a very thoughtful young Dr. Casey, I finally learned the full details of the case this morning. I was, however, upset at how I'd been kept in the dark, both by you, Ethan, and by you, Mr. Bloom.
I have no idea what you're talking about. How have I kept you in the dark?
As chief of medicine, of course, I know when a suit's been brought against one of our doctors. I knew Ethan was under investigation, but somehow the information passed along to me regarding the litigant, the nature of the evidence, all of it was inaccurate. As a result, I actually thought it was a different case entirely. I wonder how that could have happened.
Clerical mix-up, I'd imagine. Sure, let's go with that.
Are you seriously gonna let him get away with such blatant, despicable...
Listen, a minute ago, you didn't even want Naveen involved, Ethan. Shut up. We won't get anywhere arguing about this, Ethan. Just let it go. We've got bigger fish to fry.
At any rate, when I found out which case it was and looked into it, I immediately realized how baseless it was. After all, I was the attending physician. Ethan was only a resident. The responsibility was ultimately mine. Naveen, please don't. No, I think I will, because the case is simpler than that. The fact is that Ethan never ordered the contradictory treatment. I did.
What do you mean, you ordered it? You made the error?
That's right. I remember the circumstances of the case. I remember that day very, very clearly.
Even though I drank alcohol that morning.
It was the day I finally acknowledged my drinking was affecting my job. The day I decided to get myself right before I hurt anyone else. I was lucky. Someone I care about very much helped me see the light before it was too late.
I'm glad Naveen has intervened, but it's probably pretty rough on Ethan.
Naveen.
Ethan's face clouds with equal amounts of pain and affection. After a moment, he manages to tamp the emotion down, schooling his features into calm.
It's all well and good, but I'd remind you that this case is against you, Naveen. It's against Ethan.
Yes, and he's an innocent man on trial and going to be sued for something he never did. Sorry, but innocent until proven guilty, dickhead.
Despite your verbal explanation, it's Ethan's signature on the chart, which makes it hard to dispute. True, of course. I'd be ethically remiss not to take this evidence to the plaintiff, which of course would likely scuttle the suit. More importantly, it would cause huge problems from Edenbrook, and your stake in it, Mr. Bloom.
What do you mean?
If the hospital's chief of medicine revealed a scandal like this drinking on the job, years of cover-up, subordinates lying to him, the blowback would irreparably damage Edenbrook. There would be hold-ups for hospital studies, patients might go elsewhere, the place might not be able to stay afloat even with your fortune behind it, Mr. Bloom.
Oh my god. The irony is priceless. You were so eager to rake Ethan over the coals, but the person who will really be screwed here is you, Bloom.
Need I remind you that if you do, Naveen reveals this scandal, his good name would be what takes the biggest hit? My name is no good to me if I can't look myself in the mirror and say I acted honorably. And anyway, my sister was the only person whose opinion ever truly mattered to me, and I think she'd want me to tell the truth, no matter the cost.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful right there. That is very honorable and admirable. Bloom clears his throat, clearly warier than before.
So what are you proposing? For starters, you'll settle this case out of court, a very large settlement, one that the patient can't possibly refuse. Is that all? Heavens no! I'll need your word that you'll stop trying to influence medical practice at Edenbrook. Leave it to Ethan and the other doctors. Why would I agree to that?
Naveen smiles at Bloom, and while his smile is sincere, friendly even, it's also triumphant.
Because look what happened when you decided to bankroll a case as a personal vendetta, Mr. Bloom.
What are you talking about?
An actual doctor would have noticed the inconsistencies in the chart before they undertook such an elaborate revenge.
Not to mention doctors know that residents have attending eyes on all their charts.
Quite. A doctor would also have known that by pushing a patient to take things to court, it would risk far more than just one man's career. But then you're not a doctor, so of course you couldn't have known by yourself, could you?
Bloom pales. You remember the moment in the courtroom seeing him talking to the plaintiff even looks similar on Thunderstruck. You lean over and whisper to him. Ethan. I knew it. I knew it was too convenient for you to suddenly get hit with a malpractice suit, and seeing him show up in court?
I had no idea. I thought he was neutralized for good after the board cleared me for breaking trial protocol.
Clearly not. He did exactly what I figured he'd do, find a way to get you back and destroy you. That snake.
I can hear you both! Just a very small room and you're talking shit about me.
Listen, fam, you don't screw with intelligence. Bloom has gone white and rigid with anger, but he keeps his voice level and weighs his words carefully as he speaks to Naveen.
Well, I believe you've made your perspective clear. Anything else you see fit to suggest? Now, the situation will need to be examined or explained to the hospital board, and as for myself, I believe the only honorable thing for me in the hospital to do is to offer my resignation.
Naveen, no! Naveen waves Ethan down with a single gesture, his usual smile back on his face as he continues speaking with Bloom.
Still, I imagine it wouldn't be hard to find a new chief of medicine, so long as we keep this a private matter.
The room goes quiet. Bloom's jaw tenses with anger, but he knows he's beat. Curtly, he nods.
Fine, call in the patient and a lawyer.
A few minutes later, everyone's back in the room, and the patient's attorney is standing to address the judge. Your Honor, the settlement agreement proposed by the defense is acceptable for my client. We hereby withdraw the malpractice suit.
Very well, case dismissed, court is adjourned.
And this is literally what happens. Like, people are all going, oh my god, this was too fast, oh my god, this is so sudden, in like, on Choice's Facebook thing. No, this happens all the time. It gets to the point where the hospital or whatnot literally and figuratively will settle right before it's damning to them, and vice versa. Like, it happens all the time. The audience breaks into stunned chatter, but Tobias looks at you, eyes narrowed. Don't say anything. Fine. He and Harper file out along the rest of the crowd. Only Ethan is left behind, sitting shocked at the defense table, and you walk over and lay a hand on his shoulder.
I don't think I've ever felt so many conflicting emotions at once.
At least you're cleared. That's something worth celebrating.
Is it? When Naveen had to take the fall instead? I never wanted this.
Well, no one wanted this. I didn't want to see Naveen go down either, Ethan, but it was his choice, and he did what he felt he had to.
He shouldn't have had to. He should have been able to finish out his career at his own pace with his good name intact.
Naveen said it himself. It's not about his reputation or his good name. It's about looking at himself in the mirror. As much as he might not have hoped for an outcome like this, it's an outcome that Naveen's at peace with. I don't think we have to accept that. You both sit in silence for a while before Ethan finally sighs heavily.
I better head home. The whole world is about to change, the hospital and more, and I need to find a way to prepare myself for that.
Poor Ethan. He sounds devastated. He probably shouldn't be alone right now. Go with Ethan and help him work through this in more ways than one.
Oh, we know what that means!
I'm coming with you. I don't think you want to be alone right now, and frankly, neither do I. Ethan lets out a long, tired breath.
You're right. Right now I could use some company. Your company.
He gets up, and the two of you head out of the courthouse together. The drive to Ethan's apartment is quiet, and when you arrive, he collapses on the couch, letting out a long, exhausted breath.
Would you like me to cook something? I've been grocery shopping for a while, but I'm sure I can scare something up.
Not a chance. Tonight is a takeout kind of night. What are you in the mood for? My treat. I'd say take some chicken, maybe some pizza.
Chinese, I think. Thank you. I don't want to be a bad host, but cooking sounds draining at the moment.
In that case, you make the drinks, and I'll call in the order, and you keep your perfect host title intact. Gratefully, he heads to the bar while you place the order. Soon the two of you are on the couch sipping drinks while you wait for the food to arrive. So how are you feeling? He doesn't answer immediately, but takes a long, deep swallow of whiskey.
I'm not sure you want to ask me that.
Why not?
Because I know I should be triumphant and relieved that I was cleared, but I'm not, and I can't pretend to be, even for you.
Ethan, you should know by now that when I ask you how you're feeling, I want to know exactly how you're feeling, and actually how you feel, not what you ought to feel.
I appreciate that more than I can say. To answer you, I feel so many things: bitterness, anger, intense sadness, and as strange as it sounds, more than a little disappointed. I was ready to take the hit for Naveen. I would have gladly done and gone through it all, and more to preserve his legacy, and then it all came to nothing. In the end, I couldn't do this for him, and it hurts more than I expected.
I think that's very noble. You help people, Ethan. It's in your nature, and you take it personally when there's nothing you can do. You tried to do that with Naveen, and for years the choice you made worked. He got himself together, you came back, and came back to help more patients. The fact that you couldn't protect him from all this isn't a failure, Ethan. It's just life.
I wanted that's what I did to matter. I wanted to be the one suffering so that he didn't have to.
You did what you felt was right, and you can look yourself in the mirror. That's huge. Just remember the same thing goes for Naveen, okay? and Naveen said the exact same thing. He wants to look himself in the mirror, and his only opinion that mattered was his sister's, and she's gone now. He sighs, smiling wanly at you.
You're very good at this. I swear some of this advice feels familiar.
Well, a great mentor taught me that not every case ends in a win, but as long as you did everything you could, you shouldn't blame yourself.
It does sound like something I'd say. Likely because it's the sort of lesson I learned from Naveen.
Ethan takes a thoughtful sip of his drink, looking out the window.
It's funny. I'd always prided myself on standing up for the principles, no matter the consequences, but in the courtroom today, I realized there are bigger considerations than my principles, or that they cost more than I thought.
What do you mean?
Going up against Bloom, for example, I kept saying it was a matter of principle, and it was, but I kept letting myself get checked on his game board. I realize now I should have simply refused to play in the first place.
Yep.
I feel like I should have known better. I was naive, and that I've been insisting on a worldview that can't exist.
Well, how do you mean?
You know me, Casey. I don't like gray areas, and I felt my moral opposition to Bloom was about as black and white as you could get. But what I did for Naveen, that was always a gray area, and for him and for me. If I'd seen that sooner, well...
You fall silent, and you take a swig of whiskey, allowing the warm burn to coat your lips and throat while contemplating your answer. You know what I think? You were right to fight for your principles. You had Bloom's number from the start, and you were right to oppose him. It's not your fault that he sank to this level of spite.
I can't help but feel that the consequences are my responsibility.
I know you, Ethan. You're the most principled person I've ever met. You wouldn't have felt right if you didn't make your stand. As far as consequences, yes, Naveen is stepping down, but remember, Bloom has agreed not to interfere anymore. Oh, yes. I know it's bittersweet at best, but that's a real victory, Ethan. For our team and for all the other teams in the hospital.
That's true, I suppose.
Assuming that Bloom actually keeps to his word. You're musing over his words when there's a knock at the door. That must be the food. Wait right here. By the time you've set the food out, Ethan is staring out the window, clearly lost in his thoughts. Ethan, please talk to me. He opens his mouth, and then closes it again.
You know what, I think I'd rather not. If I think about it anymore, I'm gonna get maudlin and ruin the entire evening.
You know what you need? A distraction.
Oh, and what sort of distraction did you have in mind?
You can't mistake the gleam in his eyes. I have a feeling that if we start down this path tonight, we won't be able to stop ourselves. Let's start with a movie. For once. Just a movie. And not one of those highbrow art house classics you like either. I'm talking lowbrow comedy, slapstick, belly laugh stuff. Ethan opens his mouth to protest and then furrows his brow thoughtfully.
Actually, I could probably do with something a bit brain-numbing and silly.
Might I recommend The Grape Escape? Two wine salesmen get blackout drunk and wake up locked in a bank vault. Shenanigans ensue.
Say that 3 times fast. That sounds like the stupidest movie I've ever heard of. Why am I so eager to watch it?
You, Ethan Ramsey, have not spent nearly enough time in your life eating Chinese takeout on the couch and watching dumb movies. Luckily, I'm happy to be your teacher for this. Ethan rolls his eyes, but his smile is genuine, and for the first time in a while, relaxed.
Alright, but I reserve the right to make snarky commentary.
The two of you dig in as Ethan starts the movie. As much as you try to lose yourself in its ridiculousness, though, his words from earlier still weigh on your mind. The whole world is about to change. Ethan's right. The hospital will be different. The board will mean changes for all my friends. I just wish I could be sure all the change would be for the better. Ethan managed to survive his malpractice suit, but the hospital and your life will never be the same. Choose what's next in your life and love in the finale of Open Heart. And without further ado, thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Head down the description below, links to social media, Discord, and if you'd like to support me and my content. Without further ado, I will say the following. Again, this is literally what happened. So all of you Facebook people that are ripping choices apart and all this, oh my god, how did this happen so fast and all this? It literally does. I don't think you guys understand. I don't think you guys have ever been in a lawsuit or whatnot. But long story short, this actually does happen every single day. It wastes the court's time, and there's nothing judges can do or say or whatnot, and a lot of judges have spoken out against this kind of brutal waste of the court's time. It's kind of like when, say, a business comes after you for a debt. They can go to court. They can have you literally pulled into court, or you can and literally will be screwed over. They can freeze your bank accounts, they can take your money, they can take your car, they can put a lien on your house, they can do a lot of things. A business that you simply bought something for, say you used your credit card or whatnot, if they are serious enough, they can use the court as an abuse system. Now, if you go and you play the game with them, keyword, you gotta play the game, unless you suddenly want to disappear and you have no, like, actual digital thing, you have no house they can take or car or whatnot, then basically, you're fine. But, long story short, if you go to court, you show up, there will be an attorney representing the other side. They don't show up at all. They're sitting in their nice plush offices and on their couches or chairs and whatnot, and they're laughing at your expense. And the attorney will look at you and he says, you know, before the judges appears, we would like to offer you a deal. And they will offer you, like, pay, you know, $10 a month or how much ever you can afford, and basically we can all make all this go away, but the minute you stop paying the $10 a month, basically you have acknowledged and you have signed on this dotted line that you owe us, you rightfully cannot fight us in court, that you owe us that debt, and we can come after you the minute that you stop paying that $10. It's happened to me. So, TLDR, no, this happens all the time, and it's an abuse, an abundantly horrific abuse, but an abuse, nonetheless, of the time's court. Or, wow, the court's time, excuse me. So, with that being said, for all of you going, oh my god, this happened so quick, it shouldn't have been resolved that quick. No, it literally does. This happens all the time. So, until you've actually been in the situation, or you know someone who does, or whatnot, all of your Facebook lawyering and all this crap, it doesn't play a tune to anyone worth a grain of salt. Like, really. There's completely different in the real world. And if you guys ever want a class on that, feel free to drop by my Twitch channel. There's a link down below, and I will be more than glad to talk about these and many other issues that, basically, I know quite a bit about. And would be more than glad to have you there just to tune in, just to talk to. Anyway, so, without further ado, thanks for watching. Catch you all later, and peace out.